Good morning, everybody. It's your boy D Max. So let's talk. Well, this morning we're talking about perspective. What you see is what you get. And I wanted to talk about this because there's a lot of people out here whose perspective has become warped. Their perspectives have become convoluted, and they just have this doom and gloom theory all the time. And so this is how they carry themselves. This is how they act. It's all predicated on their perspective on life. And I know this because I experienced it myself for quite a few years. I've battled with PTSD. I've battled with depression. I've battled with a lot of heavy things. And throughout that time going to therapy, one of the biggest points that has been that they tried to drive home to me was my perspective, how I see things, and being able to change my perspective on life. Because coming from war, you have pretty much a doom and gloom perspective on life. Yeah, you appreciate your life more because there was a lot of people who came out in body bags, but at the same time, you see life as something different. My mindset when I went downrange and when I came back home were totally different. My perspective had changed, and that was the biggest thing. And so I'll get into that a little bit more, but I just want to go over a few things about our perspective and how we see things in this world. Now, our perspective goes like this. Um, we see things like we'll see, as far as our perspective goes, your perspective often contains these things: people and their place in society. We will often just think to ourselves where a person belongs in society, what status they belong at, what position they belong in as far as society goes. That also goes along with religion. We also have ideas of how people should live life, and this is part of our perspective as well. So cultural teachings and religious teachings, they are part of your perspective. That, what I'm saying, they help to make up your perspective. Other things such as social groups, they will they will have a big role to play in your perspective. And so if you don't like socialize with people, and you don't go out, and you don't interact with others, then your perspective is going to be very, very uh, limited. That's the word I should use. Your perspective is going to be very limited for the simple fact that you don't have much information to go by. And the little information that you do have to go by probably haven't been fact checked or anything like that. And so we build perspectives based off of what we see. But a lot of times in this age that we live in now, what you see can really be false. There's so many ways now that you can look at something and you'll see it for one thing, but it's something totally different, because they've figured out how to take these clips and take all of these videos and any image that we want to see, and they know how to manipulate those things to create a narrative, a false narrative, from what we're looking at. We've seen it time and time again. Many videos have been explained away because they changed the narrative of what was taking place, and therefore changed our perspective and our perception of what was taking place. And so we've been walking around with false perceptions and false perspectives because the information that we got was not proper information. And so when it comes to perspective, I don't like to be around people who have a gloom and doom perspective on life. If you can't see any good in anything in this world, then I really don't want to be around that type of person. And I know people like that. I know people who don't see any good in anybody and they see all of the bad things. And I have compassion for them because I was like that at some point in my walk. And this is something that I've been dealing with for a long time, and it's starting to change now. And to be that type of person is very, very tiresome. It's very emotionally tiresome and exhausting to be a negative person who sees everything in a negative light. But when I came home, that's how I was, because first and foremost, whenever you go through an experience like war, it's a very life-changing experience. There's a lot of things that you become privy to in war that will take away your innocence or your naivety, I should say. Because at some point, we have this idea that with certain people are going to think like we do and they're going to react like we do. But people in this world are not us. And this is one thing that causes miscommunications amongst others, because we go out into the world and we expect everybody to think like we did because of our upbringing in our household. And the world just does not work like that. And so when you get out here and you see people doing things other ways that are not the way that you would do it, then you have this negative outlook on things, and you have this negative connotation. Well, they're doing it wrong. Well, they could have did it this way, and in all of these things. But that's just our perception. That's our perspective, because based on our level of understanding and knowledge of other people's their upbringings. And this is something that I try to look at all the time whenever I'm dealing with people, so that I can be able to live peaceably amongst everybody, because I understand that I'm not going to be able to get along with everybody, and some people are going to not want to deal with me because of some of my views. Some of my views are very unpopular, I should say. And a lot of the times, whenever you have an unpopular view that most of society is not going to get along with, then you're going to have to deal with the criticism. You're going to have to deal with the ridicule and all of those things from those people who can't see things from your perspective and are not willing to look at things from your perspective. And like I was saying before, I used to see the world as this doom and gloom place where everything was dangerous, and I would never come out of my house hardly. I was suffering from agoraphobia for a while, for the simple fact that I didn't want to come outside of my house because everything I saw was a potential danger. Everything that I saw was a potential death. And whenever I go places, I couldn't enjoy myself for the simple fact that I was always on alert. I was always looking around, always making sure that everything was straight, looking for all of the escape routes in the place, and thinking of all the different scenarios that could happen and what I would do in those scenarios. This is all perspective. This is all my perception of the world at that time. And so everything that I did, every time that I stepped out over the threshold of my home, I was in I was in survival mode. I was always serious, head was always on a swivel, and I'm looking at every single person like they're a potential combatant. That's how I seen everybody, man, woman, or child. You were a potential combatant for me anytime I stepped out of my door. And at any moment, I wouldn't hesitate to do something to subdue you if I felt like you were a threat and you were doing something threatening. So if somebody was around me and they began to raise their voice and they began to get a little bit out of control, that set off alarms for me, and I was in kill mode. And so um, I started going to therapy in 2015, and one of the things that was constantly reinforced into me through therapy was changing my perception of reality, changing my perspective on on the society that I lived in because, like I said, when I came back, I saw everything as a threat. And that comes from this. When you're downrange and you're talking to a person almost every day or every other day. You're trying to build relations with the people from that land and things like that. And you think that you have a rapport with somebody. And then the next thing you know, one day out of nowhere, when you're not even thinking about anything, and that person just blows up and kills a bunch of people with them, or that person has been sending out coordinates for them to drop mortar rounds on you, and then you find out. So things like this will make your level of trust for anybody go to absolute zero, and it changes your perception of people. And so when I came back home, I looked at people. The more innocent you look, the more guilty you were in my eyes. The more of a threat, the more of a potential combatant you were in my eyes. And so it was hard for me to interact with anybody for the simple fact of the way that I saw people as a threat and as a combatant. And there are people out here in the world who see the world as, as a gloomy place. You see everybody as somebody who hates you. You see everybody as somebody who don't like you, or somebody who don't like something about you. And you can't see the world through the eyes of a proper view, of a healthy view, I should say. A healthy view would be this: you see and understand that everybody is different, everybody has their own issues that they're dealing with, and nobody, well, I ain't gonna say nobody, because some people are just nosy and messy and in other people's business because they don't have no business of their own. But people who have their own life and have their own business generally tend to not worry about what other people are going through and what other people have going on with them, unless you bring that to their attention. But otherwise, they're focused on their life. They're focused on their family. They're focused on their circumstances and situations. And we will make something out of absolutely nothing. It's gotten to the point to where people are ready to fight and kill each other over somebody looking at them a certain way. If you're looking at me a certain way, this can cause me to get so angry that I want to fight you and possibly take your life. This is the mindset of a lot of people today. I've seen it happen on numerous occasions. I've seen a person in the club and he was wearing so much jewelry that was so pricey that he was paranoid and he couldn't even enjoy his time in the club because he was looking at everybody like they wanted to rob him. Like, brother, don't nobody care about your jewelry. Good, good for you. You got a lot of gold. You got enough money to afford this stuff, and that's nice for you. But if you can't wear it because it makes you so paranoid that somebody's gonna rob you, then I suggest you go get rid of that, or you go to a big city and wear that stuff where it would be more well, not widely accepted, but it'll be more commonplace. See, when you come to a small place like Killeen and you trying to be out here living like you a rap star, best believe that there's somebody who gonna snatch your chain. And so if you're giving off that perception that you are a big guy and you got all this money and all this stuff like that, just know that you're drawing some negative attention to yourself because there's somebody out here that's hungry and they looking for a way to eat. And your jewelry is gonna be their way to eat. That's their perception of reality. And so while that has some merit, at the same time, if, like I said, if you can't enjoy it, if you have to spend your whole night mean mugging somebody because you think that they looking at your chain and they plotting on your chain, that's not what I call having a good time, man. And you should leave that stuff at home or whatever. But your perception, it gets clouded because of paranoia, because you don't know what's going to happen, because you got so much gold on you and you got so much diamonds on you and stuff like that. But now that has clouded your perception of reality to the point to where you can't even enjoy yourself. This is what I'm talking about, man. We need to be able to see things for what they are. So what you see is what you get, man. I'm out here in this world and I spent a whole lot of time wasted time just, going over what ifs. Every time I turn around to try to do something, there's a what if. Well, what if somebody uh shoots up the restaurant? Well, what if somebody goes off and decides to kill a bunch of people? And yeah, these things do happen. These things do happen, and they're happening more often nowadays. And a lot of people's perceptions have been changed based on these different acts, like the shootings, the mass shootings, and the school shootings, and things like that. Because not too long ago, my wife was in the mall, and there was a shooting in the mall, and they locked down the mall. And so, I'm sitting there and I'm trying to make sure that my wife is okay. She's stuck back in one of the storage rooms, and trying to hide from this live gunman in the mall. And so, these are the things that I was always thinking. And so when something like this happens, it it further solidifies my perception on that and my perspective on the society, because I'm like, I don't want to go out. Very rarely go out, for the simple fact that these things are taking place so often, and it's become so common that it can happen at any time. And so I want to have less chances of this taking place while I'm out and about. And so, I stay at home a lot. Like I said, I was, mm, I'll say, moderate agoraphobic for a while, because I would still step outside, but I would not be far away from the house, and I would not be out for a long period of time before I was right back in my safe place. And when I went out, I made sure that I had safeguards in place so that I would feel comfortable enough to be out. And without those safeguards, and you know what I'm talking about, without those safeguards on me, I would not feel comfortable being out in public, because of the potential to be shot, or the potential to get caught up in some gang activity where they're shooting at each other and you get hit with a stray bullet. All of these scenarios come up in the mind of a person who has trauma when it comes to society and their view of society. And I can't say that it's not merited, because it absolutely is. If you look at our society and the way it is now, we look like third world country. A lot of the actions that's been taking place in the United States over the last 6 to 7 years, we've looked like a third world country in our actions and in the things that's been taking place. And one example of that is the breakdown of the infrastructure in the United States. This is something that causes a lot of people to lose trust in the government, and we have a certain perception of the government. We see the government a certain way based on what they've shown us over the years, and what they've shown us over the years is that their bipartisan lies do not amount to anything other than them getting richer and us staying poorer. Our perception of politicians is that they're absolute liars, they're scum, they're weasels. You cannot believe a politician, just like you can't believe a car salesman. We have all of these perceptions in our mind, and we live on these things because of what we've experienced, but we can't use that all the way across the board. Because to be honest, I've met some car salesmen who gave me a great deal, and who was straight up and honest with me and wasn't trying to take advantage of me. So I can't say that all car salesmen are scummy and trying to get over on people. I can't say that. And then also, I can't say that every politician is scum, because there are some politicians who are really, really trying to make a change and who have really great character, but it's always overshadowed by the negative stuff, because this is what we tend to look at. We don't look at the good things in life. We are so it's so overshadowed by the bad stuff that you can't accept the fact that there are good things taking place in this world. And that's a big problem with a lot of people. And this is where my argument with a lot of people begins, because I can see the good in people. There's some of us out here who refuse to see the good in people. We refuse to see the good in society. We refuse to see the potential for us to redeem ourselves from the society that we've created, this paranoid society that we live in now. And I argue with these people, and then once I realize, this person's perception of reality is skewed, and they're gonna refuse to see any good in this world. Once I figure it out, I stop my conversation with that person, because I understand that they don't want to see any good in this world. And for a long time, I didn't want to see any good in this world, but being a being a observant person, and being someone who really sits back and take the time to analyze things and really understand what's going on. I've seen some good things. I've seen good people. I've seen some good acts. And when I say good acts, I mean good things that people have done for other people. I've seen good deeds. I've seen um, just unadulterated love from people. I've seen people go out and do for others without, looking for a pat on the back. These are just things I catch sometimes, and that lets me know that there are still good people in the world. There's still uh, good things that can happen in the world, and there's still opportunities out here for us to be a part of that. But if you're so paranoid and you're so afraid of the world that you stay cooped up in the house all the time, you're limiting your opportunities to interact with others and have some of these good experiences, so that your mindset can change. And see, that's all the trick of the enemy. He wants to get you away from everybody. He wants to get you secluded, so that he can work on you by himself and keep on reinforcing all of those negative things to you. But if you have the mind to not listen to that stuff and really go out and see for yourself with an open mind and not a closed mind, then you will begin to see that there are good people in the world. You'll begin to see that there are still blessings that are coming. We still see, because when people say that there's no love and there's no this and that in the world, then they're saying that there's no God. That's what they're saying, because God is love, and anybody that has God in them, or is seeking to be like Christ, they're going to exhibit these God features. They're going to exhibit these characteristics that others are claiming don't people don't have anymore. And so I see some very nice people of all races, of all ethnicities, of all types of backgrounds. I see these people, and I see them doing remarkably nice things for others. I know of people who have taken in children who were less fortunate and who didn't have a family and had circumstances and situations that left them alone. And people have had the heart to take them into their homes and treat them like their very own, like they came from their womb, like they came from their testicles. I've seen the heart of man. I've seen the goodness that still lies in people. There's still a residue of goodness throughout this country. It may be overshadowed by all of the stuff that we see on TV and in social media, because they want to keep us at a certain level of fear so that they can keep us under control by that fear. And now that I understand that, I don't allow that fear to dictate my actions. I don't allow that fear to determine my perception and my perspective on life anymore. But I did at a point. For a long time. For a long time, I allowed my views to be distorted by lies in social media. And now that I've become wiser and I understand that, some of these statements that I latched onto and some of these declarations that I latched onto were not true. They were generalized statements. They were blanket statements that did not address the nuances and did not address the exceptions to those situations and circumstances. And so we didn't look at those things. But now that I have time to sit back and really take advantage of the time that I have to work things out in my mind and really see the truth of it, my perception is changing. My perception is truly changing. You can tell in my speech. You can tell in, well, my family can tell in the fact that I'm starting to get out and try to experience things in this world again. Um, Not passing on that negative mindset, and everything coming out of your mouth is a what if, one of those what if statements. Well, what if the world, well, what if World War III take place? Well, what if China does this? What? Who cares, man? We've been given a roadmap to navigate this thing because all of these things were said to take place. There's nobody who ever said that life was just going to be simple and you're going to walk through it without any problems, without anything happening to you, and you're not going to deal with any type of adversity. No one ever said that to you. And if they did, then I'm sorry that they lied to you and set you up for failure in such a way, because the world that we live in is full of ups and downs, it's full of obstacles, it's full of situations that will change your whole mindset if you allow it to. So I'm going to just encourage everybody today. If you have the negative perception, if you have a negative outlook on life, if you see everything as something potentially bad, I challenge you to open up your mind and go and look for the good things in life. Just take one day. And if a day is too long, take 1 hour to just look up good things. Yeah. Take 1 hour just to look up good things, look up the positive things that are happening in the world, and you will begin to see they will come from under the shadow of all of the bad stuff that is always placed on top of it, or or all of the things that are put in our face to paint a certain picture. If you look a little harder, you're going to see those good things that are still taking place that they don't want us to see. They don't want to see that black men are taking care of their children. They don't want to see that black women are coming up in the workplace and they've become a very, very valuable asset in the workforce. They don't want to see certain perceptions because they have their own agenda that they're pushing and their own message that they're sending out, not only to the country, but to the rest of the world. And so to see those other things and to expound on those other things, it messes with the narrative that they've put out there. And so they're going to downplay all of the good stuff that's taking place, and they're going to highlight all of the bad stuff that's taking place so that they can continue to control you. And so my thing is this: when you find this out, when you figure this out to be true, my question becomes this: are you going to allow them to dictate your perception or your perspective? Because at that point, that's what you're doing. Once you've been properly informed, it's your fault on how you were influenced. You have all of the information at hand, and you choose to select whatever information for whatever motive. If your motive isn't pure, then you're always going to choose those things that's going to lead you astray. But if your motive is convoluted, then you're always going to choose those things that are going to cause problems, and you're going to end up frustrated in the long run. So choose wisely out here in this world. Um, think wisely out here in this world. And just know that through all of the bad things that we see, there's still a lot of good in this world. And it's not like a 90% bad, 10% good. No, it's more along the lines of, I'll say, about 60% good, 40% bad, but that 40% is highlighted all the time. And so that 60 don't look like 60%. And this is what's happening. Most people are generally good people. They just want to go about their day. They don't want to be bothered. And if it's on their heart to do, then they'll do something kind for another person or look out for another person. Generally, that's what type of person you deal with in this country. But you do have people in this country who have a warped sense of perception, and they have bitterness and they have anger and hatred because of the things that they've been through in life, and that's all that they're able to give to other people is that hatred and that anger. And so we have to understand that these people exist, but they are not the majority. These people with these mindsets, these negative people, these people who have been hurt, these people who won't let go of the past pain and things like that, we have to understand that they are not the majority in our country. These are the people that we may come across on a regular basis. And in that instance, we really have to check who we hang around. We really have to make sure that we're not around a person who's going to paint a picture of negativity every single time we talk about something, because you're going to begin to gravitate towards those negative views, especially if it's somebody with some charisma and who's articulate and who can make something sound really convincing. And so this is why, and the word even tells us to stay away from these types of people, people whose feet is always pointed in the direction of mischief. Stay away from those people because they have a bad perception and they want to spread that perception to others so that others can join in the misery, because misery loves company. This is a common saying, and it wasn't made up for no reason, because there's a very common thread with hurt people. They love to hurt other people because they don't like to be going through what they're going through by themselves. And so, knowing this, we have to be able to identify when people have a negative connotation, and we just combat that with love, man. We combat that with positive affirmations. We combat that with, you know, I don't know, painting a different picture for this person. And when we're able to do this without losing our cool and matching their energy of ignorance and frustration, then we can make a change in that person's life. Maybe not initially, whenever we're having that conversation and they're pushing against everything that we're trying to say. Not in that instance. We feel like we didn't make any headway. Best believe that you've planted a seed, and they're going to go off. And as they start to cool down and as they start to think about things, they're really going to consider the things that you said. They may not ever admit it to you, but best believe you plant a seed every time you speak into a person's life directly. And so these are the things that we're looking out for today. Just be positive. If you don't have a positive outlook on things, just go and find, seek, search for those things that are taking place out here, the good things that are taking place, because there's a lot of good that's going on and you can't see the forest because of the trees. We're constantly looking for the bad things. We're not looking for the good things to happen. We become so conditioned in fear that we're always looking out for the bad things to take place. And we're always expecting the worst. So if you've been in that mindset, I encourage you to work your way out of it. There's plenty of groups out there that can help. There's plenty of mentors out there that can help. There's people like me who've been through these things who can also help with some things that I've done to help me to change my perception and my perspective on life. Um, but it's only if you want it. If you love to dwell anger and hatred and bitterness and fear and paranoia, then you're just going to stay there. But if you're a person who wants to live a quality life and really wants to enjoy the fullness of life, then you're going to do something about it. I thank you guys for coming through and listening to me today. I thank everybody for their support, man. Page still growing. And, sometimes I say I don't know why. That's just a habit. I say I don't know why, but I really do know why. The page is growing, and I do know why people are sticking around to listen to what I have to say, and it has absolutely nothing to do with me. And the word that I speak is just something that comes from my heart, and what comes from my heart has been given to me by God because I'm constantly filling myself up with God stuff. And when I say God stuff, I don't mean religious stuff. I mean, everyday stuff that's taking place in practical ways to deal with the situation in as opposed to the way that we usually deal with situations. This is the God stuff that I deal with. Problem solving, solution solving, all of these things. This is God stuff. All right, so I'm a God-minded person because I'm always looking for a solution to something. I'm always looking for a better way. I'm always looking to be able to improve something and not sit back and complain about stuff all the time with no action whatsoever towards trying to make it better. So yeah, this is your boy D Mac, man. Thank y'all again. I love everybody. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't. Hit the like button. No, you know what? I take that back. Don't hit that like button. Subscribe, but don't hit the like button because the more likes you get, the more activity you get, and the more attention you get from YouTube. And they want to try to put a damper on your influence. They will shadow ban you so that you don't get no views. They'll put you in that area where you can't get picked up in the algorithm and stuff like that. So don't hit the like button, y'all. Go ahead and come on and subscribe and we can have conversation or whatever, but try not to hit that like button, man, because that just brings too much attention to a page that YouTube really don't need to be paying no attention to right now. But yeah, that's your boy D Mac, man. Y'all know what I say. Sticks and stones can break your bones, but the word can always heal you. I'm out.